Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Spike Anastasia, and with me today is Brandon.
Hello.
We're here to talk about games and things.
Yes, we are.
What's on the agenda this week?
We're
Game of the Year.
Yeah, we're discussing Game of the Year stuff.
Yeah, no, it's not Game of the Year for realsies yet.
Yeah, we're not quite there, but we got our list that we're starting to make, so we figured we'd share that with you guys.
Oh, and we got an episode that we got to kill. So here it is. So I don't know how we want to do this. So do we just want to talk about stuff that we are planning on talking about for Game of the Year? Or we not really talked about how we want to present this.
See, I thought you had an idea about it. That's why I was like, "Oh, you got everything ready?"
No, it was your idea. I thought you had the idea for it. Well, let's talk Game of the Year. And I was like, sure, that's a great idea.
Fine. We've talked about a lot of games over this year.
Yeah.
I think it's best
to do on gaming podcasts.
Yeah. I think it's best to kind of go into the games that have stuck with us, like some of them that might show up during our Game of the Year. Or it doesn't have to be ones that you've completely finished, but ones that you've played enough that you're just like, yeah, I'll probably end up talking about that come the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's why Nick didn't want to join us on this episode, because
he hasn't played games.
Or he just doesn't want us to know what games that we think he's going to think favorably about. Yeah, so that's what I think. I think that's what Nick is doing. So yeah, I don't know. I got things to talk about, I suppose. Oh, well, I don't know. I'll lead off with a big one.
All right.
Go big or go home. Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. No way this game's not making our list.
Yep.
The only person whose list it won't make is probably Nick's, because he's not here to defend himself, and he doesn't like it. So,
and there you go.
Yeah. But I don't think there's any beating around the bush. This was an exquisite, well-polished game that really kind of delivered, even though we weren't sure what we were getting, like, even a week beforehand. So
that's true. Yeah. That's definitely true. Yeah, I definitely think this will show up on my list pretty easily, actually. I like to be a contrarian, though, so I don't even think it'll be in my top 5.
I mean, it's fine. But I just feel like this is a game
with some friends the other night about this game, and one of them was just like, "Yeah, I hated it." I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I didn't like it at all." I was like, "Okay, can you elaborate?" And he's like, "I think the story is absolute dog shit and not good in the least bit. And depend on the fact that it's an open world and you can get these elements of the story ahead of time. When the big reveals come about, you already know what they are based if you've gone and explored the entire open world. So your character being like, oh my god, is fucking stupid because he already knows."
Okay, well, Link doesn't voice act anything, so he's not like, oh my god. And he's like the most stone-faced of all the people. So yeah, I don't know. Saying that you're gonna get emotional reaction out of him, very dramatic.
Not out of him. He's talking about when you have those conversations with characters at the end, and they're like having their big revelation, and then you already know this, and it's like,
oh, you're saying like you yourself already know that. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean that's true. Like
it was stupid. You didn't like it, essentially. And he said the gameplay was fine. It was good. It's another Breath of the Wild kind of game that has more to it. But yeah, he didn't really care for it. He also didn't like Breath of the Wild, so
that's also an issue. But to break things up, though, and bring things back, I mean, I know that people like to talk about the Zelda story. I mean, I even talk about Zelda timelines and shit all the time. But let's be honest, it's not like the Zelda stories are like super compelling. Like it's usually basically like something happens at the beginning of the game, and then a whole lot of nothing, and then you beat whoever the big bad guy is, and then the world is right again. Like there really is not any like, oh my god, crazy plot twist. I can't believe that happened. Maybe Skyward Sword had a little bit of one. I guess maybe Ocarina of Time, when you're like, oh yeah, you
Twilight Princess Wind Waker had story. They had story elements that were given to you throughout the entire game, and not just
at
the end.
Okay, so
and that's two of his
Waker
games, which is why I think we're at that point essentially.
But the thing is, the twist is always the same. It's like, oh no, this person wasn't who you thought it was, and it's like it's been like Tales of Old Time since Ocarina of Time. Like Ocarina of Time. Oh, Sheik is Zelda. Oh my god. And then Wind Waker. It's like, oh my god. Tetra is Princess Zelda. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And then in Twilight Princess, it's like, oh my god, Mindo was weird anime babe. Oh my god. And then in Skyward Sword, it's like, oh my god, Zelda is also the goddess Hylia. Oh my god, it's like that's the twist every time. It's like it's very predictable. It's always someone, and probably Zelda is not who they thought they were, and then then that's what it is. But I mean, really think about it though. If you break down the story of Wind Waker, kind of even like more broadly, it's like, hey, you're living on an island, and then oh no, some bad things are happening.
It's just One Piece, isn't it? I said the story of Wind Waker is just One Piece, isn't it?
What you mean? Like nothing happens for like a long time?
No.
Lost on me. I don't understand it.
Pirates sailing the seas, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sure. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, but I mean, that's basically what happens. They're like, oh no, some bad shit's here. Ganon is back. Oh, he's dead. And then, like, it's not like the at the end of Wind Waker, like the seas melt away.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, nope, get the fuck out of here. Go somewhere else to a happier place. That's the whole story. There's not really any story.
It doesn't matter. He would rather have something like that or any of those other games than the fragmented, broken, shitty story that was Tears of the Kingdom. And I honestly feel the same way. I do think Tears of the Kingdom has probably one of the worst Zelda stories. Outside of, like, obviously the CDI games. But
yes. It has the same twist that we just talked about from the other games.
Correct, but how we get there is so stupid. That's where I'm going with. I'm not going to say anything else, but it's just stupid.
I don't know. My whole point was
stupid because of the fact that they are presenting you these parts of the story through the flashbacks that you have throughout the game and everything. But those parts of the story, depending on how much of the world you explored, you already know the entire story by the time you get to the end, and you're supposed to be like surprised by it, you're the player, but you already have put it together, and it's just kind of bad because open world gaming. That is what I'm saying. It's the open world that's the problem, and it's not.
No, it is. But I also kind of think though that the way that this game comes together at the end, for the people who have seen all the memories.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily expect you to be surprised at the ending, I would say.
Yeah, maybe. But
it's
presented the same way if you've seen all the endings, or all the visions.
Yeah, if you've seen it all, or if you haven't. But you do get an advantage to beating the game if you do see all the memories.
Mm-hmm.
So the game, like, definitely entices you to do so.
My main point, the conversation I had with them, was essentially the open world kind of cheapens some of the elements of the story, as well as it does the same thing every open world game does now, where essentially you could go and do whatever the fuck you want in the open world that makes everything else trivial for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
When you made it follow the main plot. And that's kind of what the issue was. And that's the same issue I have with the game. But I don't
kind of the same issue that
it's whatever.
It's kind of the same issue that we talked about in the past with like the Pokemon Violet versus the DLC. The DLC was a very controlled kind of story, and it forced you to go through it linearly, even though the game itself, the core game, was just like, go do whatever you want. But, kind of if you break down those story beats, kind of separately, it's kind of the same kind of issue with, that kind of story. Like the story for Pokemon Violet and Scarlet was like, yeah, here's kind of a loosely told tale that kind of comes together at the end at a point where we know you'll eventually get there at the same point as everyone else.
Yeah.
And then you get to the DLC and it's like, here is a very carefully coordinated story because we want you to go through these beats in a specific order.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're right. It is kind of a quote unquote feature of open world games. Like it's much harder to control that story narrative, so you kind of are left with two choices where it's basically like, yeah, you either bottleneck people into certain story bits, or you kind of just let them figure it out as they go.
There's two sides of this coin, and I actually am specifically sent us down this path on purpose because what we're talking about now. Because I want to talk about my most disappointing game. That will, if we talk about most disappointing games on the game of the year, this is going to be my number one push for most disappointing games. And that would, if I could pick two, that would also be there. But I think there's one that's even worse. And the answer is Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16
drama
being something that was so interesting and so good to being an open world that did not matter in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, and a game that railroaded you so hard that I felt the need to like call for help. I'm just saying, like, it's bad. It is not good. I didn't ever actually need help with the game. I mean, like, you know, from being tied to the railroad, calling for help. It was supposed to be like a analogy. I didn't need help with the game because that was the problem. The game railroaded you so hard that every enemy that you would fight would be your same level, so there was never any challenge in an open world game. That doesn't work. You can't do that. It doesn't make it good. But it doesn't matter because there was so little game there that it didn't matter. I loved my 17 hours of cutscenes in a 30-hour game. Thank you very much, game. And when I say like 17 hours, I don't mean like consecutively. I meant like the part that would tear you away from the game and be like, all right, let's watch like 10, 15 minutes of cutscenes. All right, walk for 5 minutes. Okay, did a few battles with things that really just involved you pressing square repeatedly, even on the hardest difficulty because it's so fucking easy because everything's around your same level that it didn't matter. Okay, you've done that. All right, here's another 30 minutes of cutscenes. And it's just fucking awful. I can't believe that game went from being so incredible to at the like 20-hour mark, I didn't even want to play any more of it. I just, it's so bad.
Did you ever finish it? I can't remember.
No, I have like 5 hours left, and I don't want to.
Fair.
I mean, I will. I'm going to. I'm going to force myself to, but like, it's such a big disappointment because it had so much potential, and it showed itself to have so much potential. And then just nothing. Like that's the biggest issue I had with that game. Like, and I wanted to say two sides of the same coin because, you know, we were talking about Zelda and I was like, yeah, you know, it can ruin the story by the world being too open, but it can also ruin the story by this world being an open world but being too closed, which is the problem with Final Fantasy 16. Fuck.
Sounds like a mess.
It is, and everyone wants to pretend like it's not because
it's Final Fantasy.
Well, not only that, right? Here's the takeaway that I've learned, right? And this might be a hot take, but people that play on PlayStation don't want to play games. They want to watch a movie and sometimes hit the X or square button. And that is what Final Fantasy 16 feels like. I'm watching a 30 to 35 hour long movie and I'm sometimes hitting some buttons. And it's just not good.
I mean, there's a time and a place for every type of game.
It's not Final Fantasy. Like that's the thing. And then there's the issue of the game has a very intricate and well-designed combat system, but there's no point to using it ever. So like, why?
Just to say that they did, which is, you know, usually why a lot of things are done, I suppose.
It's very clearly made to play like Devil May Cry, but it very clearly has like Babby's first Final Fantasy game or Babby's knockoff of Game of Thrones game instead.
Well, hopefully the Final Fantasy VII Part 2 remake will be better.
Oh, well, Final Fantasy VII Part 1 was already really good. I actually played all of that this year, all the way through, DLC and stuff included. Obviously, I can't put that here, but that was really good. So I went back and played it on PC to play all the way through all of that stuff. Because I didn't play the DLC before, but yeah. No, if they stick to the same thing as Final Fantasy VII Part 1 did, it will be obviously a much better game. But that's neither here nor there. We're not talking about that. I'm just telling you that
next year. Next year, stay tuned.
When we have conversations about most disappointed, it will be probably Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy. I will have to fight with myself with that one because I got to think about it. Because like one of them won our most anticipated game, and it's the one I cared the least about this year.
Yeah, that's pretty striking. It'll be interesting to see where Nick falls on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know if he's played it or not, but I mean, obviously he was excited about it as well. So, Be interesting to see because we do not know. Well, what else? I guess you talked about Final Fantasy. I can talk about something else.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see, what else did I play this year? Pikmin 4. That was a great game. Excellent. That definitely will come up on Game of the Year. Definitely, I don't know, because in terms of games, I cannot imagine anyone has a controversial take on this one. But in terms of the series as a whole, I think I said it before, this game seems like it was built like, hey, we don't know if we're ever going to make another one of these again, so let's just do every fucking thing that we can. And that's what they did. This game is really deep. It's got a lot of complexity to it. It's got a lot of things to do. It's got a lot to explore. It's got a lot of treasures. It's got more treasures than I think all 3 previous games combined to collect. That's awesome. They got rid of some of the, odder elements of the game. They brought back some more classic elements of the previous game. So yeah, I mean, it really is kind of like this game is like, hey, I'm the pinnacle of Pikmin games. Enjoy me. The only thing it does lack sometimes is difficulty. But there's some challenge areas that I think, at least will be more up, players' alleys that were looking for some of that difficulty stuff. Past the main game. So I think they made the main game accessible to people who want to play it. But like once you go through and start trying to collect everything and go into the kind of the, post game content, yeah, you'll definitely be more than satisfied with what's there.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think they had a lot of neat elements in there, so that it's kind of built on a lot of the new elements, like the dog. What was his name? Ochi. He was a lot more enjoyable than I expected him to be. Not just he makes the world a bit more traversable, but you can also use him to kind of like help you do the stuff you need to do as well. So, yeah, no, I think they really kind of nailed it with everything that they had there. I was very pleasantly surprised with it. So,
okay.
Yeah. All right, it's my Pikmin 4 spiel.
Okay. Can I hit you with some of the the indie titles I played this year that I think are all excellent? Okay. So Brotato, really fun game. I talked about this one for a bit. It's another one of those survivor-like games, but it has its own kind of thing where you can combine 6 different weapons that you can carry. It's just pretty cool. It allows you to mix and match and create all sorts of different builds, and each time you do certain achievements, you unlock different characters that you could start as that have different attributes. Very fun game, great game. Like $4 or $5 on Switch. Highly recommend checking this one out. It's much like Vampire Survivors, which still gonna tell you to play Vampire Survivors because it's on Switch now and there's no excuse. Please play Vampire Survivors. I can't put that as Game of the Year because I've already done that once. But I have played the new stuff for Vampire Survivors, also really good. But you know what did come out this year that is better than Vampire Survivors, that is still Vampire Survivors? That's HoloCure. HoloCure I've spent like 27 hours in or some shit. Really good. So it takes all the VTubers and puts them in their own form of Vampire Survivors. It's the one I told you that borrowed from Vampire Survivors, and then Vampire Survivors borrowed from it because it was so well made that they were just stealing back and forth essentially from each other as they made new content. And it was really neat to see that happen in real time. Great game. And and then Turbo Overkill, which this one I actually do think will probably be somewhere on my list. It is what I wanted Doom Eternal to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like Doom Eternal is great, don't get me wrong, but like I feel like the platforming and stuff here is much more smooth and a lot more fun to do than it was in Doom Eternal. But that's just me. It is what it is. I really like this game, and it's a lot of fun. It's a boomer shooter, and you know how I like those. So
yeah,
there's that. Great game. And then I'm literally going to rip the Band-Aid off right now. You're going to already know what my game of the year is. I don't foresee anything changing. Period. So
okay.
you probably already could guess what my game of the year is. It is an indie title, but I have talked about it quite a bit this year.
That
and it
one
is
that's like the Jet Set Radio.
Yes, it's 100% my game of the year. Like, there's no way that is changing unless something mind-blowing releases. So, last indie title I'll talk about before I get into the AAA titles is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. And I will just say, you're cheating since Nick isn't here. This is my game of the year. Like, it is. This game's incredible. From the music to the gameplay to the way they changed up the style of it, like gameplay style, but they still made it fit and feel just like a spiritual successor or a sequel to Jet Set Radio. It has literally everything I wanted in every way, shape, and form, and then some. The world's really interesting. The different even the story's good, which is what surprised me the most, I think. The trick system's a lot of fun, and just in general, this is like the most fun I've had in a game this year, period. So, yeah. I'm just giving you a freebie at this point, Mike. So there you go.
See, I feel like this is a trick. Because then I'll do it, and then you'll be like, just kidding. I got a better game now.
I'm not tricking you this time. This is
it, and I realize it's only my second favorite game.
No, I don't think anything can beat this. The sheer amount of joy I had from just playing this game. It's going to be really hard to for anything. And like, if anything comes close to it, I'll let you know between now and Game of the Year. But nothing has come close to beating this game yet, and it's just it's incredible. They blew it out of the park. They did everything they wanted and more, and I just could not be happier with this game.
That's good. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking about buying the vinyl for this. Like, that's how good this is.
You're buying the vinyl?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're making a vinyl album for the game, and I really want it. But then there's the cheaper alternative that I might get instead, which is the cassette tape.
It's kind of cool though on its own.
Yeah, right? I actually have a cassette tape of another band that recently released an album in 2021. They released a horror themed album, and they released their album on a cassette tape, and they had this sparkles embedded inside the cassette tape to look like blood splatters. It was super neat. I've got an album like that, and I kind of since then I've been there's a lot more artists that are doing cassette tapes instead of vinyls. And they're cheaper, and they look really cool, and they're easier to store. Maybe I'll do that instead.
So. Yeah, very classic. I don't know. I still have a cassette player at my house.
I don't. It'd just be for collecting reasons.
For nostalgia. Yeah.
Yeah, more or less.
I mean, I guess if you're looking for nostalgia, vinyl is probably a better way to go. But anyway.
It is. But I do think, if I'm being realistic, I didn't grow up with vinyl. I grew up with cassette tapes. So it's more nostalgic for me for finding an actual cassette tape of new music. I think that's really fucking neat. Even if I don't listen to the music on said cassette tape, actually collecting something like that is a lot more nostalgic for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, all I can really say is Cyberpunk, listen to me. Cyberfunk, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is a game that I waited 3 years for, I believe, and it blew my expectations out of the water. And for that, I am incredibly happy. So there you go.
Yeah. No, I know you're definitely very happy with that game, at least from what you talked about with that. So that's good. And we'll see flip
AAA
flop
games
on Game of the Year.
Well, I'll talk about AAA titles now when going forward because I've got other games to talk about, but I just want to get that one out there right now. So there you go.
Yeah. It'll definitely make my list. So I'll talk about Metroid Prime Remastered.
Okay.
That's there. This has been like the year of GameCube kind of extravagance.
Yeah.
I would say. Lots of good re-releases this year from that era, and this one definitely is one of them. Metroid Prime Remastered.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been rumors floating around that Metroid Prime was going to get re-released on the Switch for a while, and I think we all really didn't know what to expect from it. And then it came out, and it was a lot better than I think anyone expected it to. It looks really nice, and it was also like $30, and it was shadow dropped, and and then they kept all the control schemes that were available. You got pointers, you got dual sticks, everything you want available. So, and that was really good. Metroid Prime, I know it's one, and I tell the story I think every time we talk about Metroid Prime. But it was a game that I really did not love when it first came out. I did not hate it. I just thought it was good, and it definitely still had some flaws. And also, 20 years later, guess what? I still think the same thing. This game is good, and I still think it has some flaws. Most of these flaws are deliberate. It's kind of series design. But, this game has just some very unnecessary backtracking that just still pisses me off to this day. And it's not like the 2D backtracking. 2D backtracking was not as egregious. Some of these levels, there's like rooms that you have to get through, kind of obnoxious. Granted, though, as time has aged, there are some things that are a little bit more convenient. But the maps in this game, not always conducive to get to where you want to. You kind of have to be a mind reader. And sometimes your memory has to be spot on, too. Because sometimes you'll go to a room and it'll either be changed from when you went through it last time, or something will be closed, or you don't have the correct method to get through room to said where you want to go, or it's a one-way room. You don't know. Because you won't know until you get there and you'll be like, fuck, I can't go this way. And you got to backtrack even further to get back to the way you want to go. So this game, at its core, has some issues. But I think in terms of remakes, it's an excellent game. It looks fantastic. People who love the game love this game. And I do think it's a good remake. It does bring, I would say definitely a step up from, say, like the Wii re-release that they did. And it looks stunning, I think. The game looks absolutely phenomenal. So hopefully this was the incentive they needed to kind of do the same for the other Metroid Primes. I think this will let them drag their feet on Metroid Prime 4 for a little longer.
Yeah.
Just kind of, I feel like that they're going to dribble the other two out just to kind of like tease towards 4. At this point, I feel like it's very unlikely that we are getting Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch. So that is kind of my new stance on this game.
On whatever the next console is?
Yeah. And I guess it depends on when the next console releases. I mean, we kind of talked about it with the last Nintendo Direct. There's kind of a weird empty void that they've kind of created for next year already. So it's kind of like, their furthest out title at this point. Well, I guess it's Thousand Year Door, because that's 2024 vaguely.
Yeah.
And they didn't put a time on it. But, you think about, we talked about next year kind of as a whole, and it's like, yeah, you got this Princess Peach game that's new and exciting, and that's fun. But like a lot of Nintendo's tentpoles, pretty much starting from November until through all of what we know next year are re-releases and remakes. So, granted, they're ones that people want. You got Super Mario RPG, Thousand Year Door, Luigi's Mansion 2.
Yep.
But it's like, yeah, they're propping a lot of things up with re-releases and remakes, which to me, listen, hey, you're giving people what you want, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. But what it also says to me is that they are getting ready for next gen. So it's like, hey, we'll kind of do these low-hanging fruit to keep people going while we, dedicate most of our resources to new games. And this is a really big tangent because we were talking about Metroid Prime Remastered in a Game of the Year podcast.
Yep.
So, there you go. That's my tangent. But Metroid Prime Remastered is an excellent remake. And I have a feeling that will not be the only remake that comes up on Game of the Year because You know.
Yep. You sure do know me. We're about to hop into that one immediately, actually.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for you to stop flapping about Metroid Prime for a second so I can talk about
Metroid Primes and then the Switch 2 and then
Yeah, so I can just mention that I do stand by what I said on 11/15/2022, which was that Resident Evil 4 will be incredible. Resident Evil 4 remake is fucking incredible. It is so good. They just released some DLC for it that I gotta pick up, but it is so fucking good. All right, so this obviously I've already
saying it's your game of the year.
Stop. I was trying to get to that conversation. I've already told you how I feel about Bomb Rush Cyberpunk and how much that game means to me just in general.
So what you're saying is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is not incredible.
I did not say that. That game is literally that game literally just made me happy in like one of the worst times. Period. When that game released, Resident Evil 4 is just so much fun. The correct way to make a remake, and like probably one of the best remakes that they've done yet. We've gotten the Resident Evil 3 remake, which was it was whatever. It wasn't that good. We got the Resident Evil 2 remake, which was very good, which was several people's game of the year it released, actually. And the Resident Evil 4 remake, I do think will end up being a sleeper hit, where if people don't want to vote for Nintendo for some reason, they'll end up voting for this game because it's on everything and because it's an incredible remaster and remake or whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's like completely rebuilt, essentially. There's a lot more content than the original game had. And just in general, it looks way better. It plays way better. This was one of those games where when we were first leading up to it, I was like, does Resident Evil 4 really need a remake? And it didn't, really, because the game itself was always very good. But this remake is how you make a remake if you're going to make a remake. And it is just the best. They're redoing it now in VR, so they're doing a VR mode for this remake also. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is pretty much exactly as I wanted it. Yes, there's a few things cut out that aren't so PC anymore and aren't allowed here in modern gaming. But if you ignore those elements, this is one of the best remakes that we have like ever gotten when it comes to like modernizing a game that I didn't think needed to be modernized, but holy shit, it changed so much that like going back to the original now, it's like, yeah, it's still really good, but I really miss the being able to move and shoot. I really miss all those things, and having those elements here and having it cranked up to 11. It's so good. They gave like Ashley a personality instead of just being essentially an object, which is kind of cool. That's neat. They gave so much more context to everything that was going on, whereas it definitely felt like a PS2 game, a GameCube game, the original Resident Evil 4. Looking at this, if Resident Evil 4 never released, this could just be a modern title, and it would still totally fucking work without being a remake because it's just that good. So, yeah, I have finished this twice, I believe. Might have even been a third time. I don't remember. But it's good. It's really fucking good. So, like I said, I really want to play the new DLC that just came out. And I need to get into Mercenaries. I really wish Mercenaries was multiplayer. If I had a single complaint, it would be that the Mercenaries mode isn't multiplayer. But it never was multiplayer in the GameCube or PS2 version, so I can't really complain about that. So, whatever.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, because it was just kind of a score attack kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mercenaries in like current Resident Evil, not 7, but like before then, they would have Mercenaries modes that were multiplayer, and they are still score attack kind of things, but they worked as a multiplayer game. Like it was built into Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, and it was like one of the best parts of those games.
Yeah, Revelations is really good. Actually, those are games I keep on wanting to play again once they're
great.
They're on sale all the time, and they're like super cheap, like $7.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always like, oh, I should, redo Revelations. I remember liking Revelations 1 more than Revelations 2.
Me too.
Because I think I played the Revelations 1 a couple times.
Played it.
Revelations 2, I think I just played through. Remember, Revelations 2 came out as like an episodic game. Remember when that was a big thing?
Mm-hmm.
And they used to do like a lot of games that were episodic, and now nobody does them anymore.
Episodic? Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
When I see a game, I'm like, well, are they okay?
Yeah, so I would try it. I would play Resident Evil again. Actually, Capcom has a sale right now, but it's like the only thing that's not on sale is Resident Evil games.
That sucks.
Yeah. It's bound to happen. Capcom stuff's on sale all the time.
Well, you still you gotta play RE4. Like, please play RE4.
I will think about it. I'm still just jaded by the game and the demo. So I'll think about it.
All right.
I feel like I have more pressing games this year.
Yeah, probably. Should I talk about some more of my games since you kind of rattled off a few things when you were going on your? Okay. Street Fighter 6 is the best Street Fighter we've had since 4.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the best we've had since the old days, like period, like Third Strike or Tournament Edition of 2 or whatever. Yeah. Street Fighter 6 is an incredible game. Everything about it is so good. I think this will absolutely probably be on my list. Like, it is, from the single player story mode that's open world and like got RPG aspects to it, to the multitude of throwback content to do with past Street Fighter games, to the constant drip feed and drop of more content, like weekly, monthly, that sort of deal, to them releasing new characters over time and releasing like battle passes and stuff like that. All of that stuff come together to make this a lasting Street Fighter game. And then on top of all of that, the combat is incredible. Like, it's just so fucking good. So yeah, Street Fighter 6 is the most fun I've had playing a fighting game in a very, very long time. And I've played it a lot, like late at night with my friends. And I've really enjoyed my time with this game. So there you go. Street Fighter 6.
Yeah. I think, let's see, another stuff I want to talk about, really kind of DLC. I was thinking we probably should have DLC category this year.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good DLC stuff. And I know you got, if you end up playing the Resident Evil stuff, that I'm sure would probably be decent. You got Cyberpunk DLC, that's kind of big.
I got Vampire Survivors DLC.
Oh, that's true too. And then, we had some other big ones too this year, like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 had Future Redeemed, which I thought was a lot of fun. Kind of bringing those universes together. When did that even come out? It feels like forever ago now. But yeah, they kind of, it must have been like April, I think.
There you go.
But they did, it kind of brings together the stories of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 and kind of sets up like a prequel for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and kind of what's going on there and what happened with Shulk and Rex and kind of how they fit into that weird Xenoblade Chronicles 3 universe and whatever weird shit they got going on there. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And I always think they do a really good job with the Xenoblade DLC because it's usually a pretty interesting take. Xenoblade Chronicles 2's Torna was also excellent. And it basically functions as a standalone game. You don't have to have played anything from the original ones. Nothing really kind of ties over from it. So yeah, no, I really did think that was, great. And it's Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has a really interesting universe that kind of gets teed up in this. But they also do, like I said, because it's trying to tie the 3 universes together. So it does some weird shit. But I really don't want to spoil anything for people playing it. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. So if you like Xenoblade Chronicles, any of them, I would say play Future Redeemed. I think it's worthwhile. So there's that. What other DLC would I talk about? I mean, Pokemon Violet and I don't remember what it's called, the Indigo Disc. I mean, we're recording this. The only thing that's out so far is Teal Mask, and I don't expect that to change between now and when you hear that. But the first DLC was, pretty decent. If you like Pokemon, I think if you listened a couple weeks ago, talked about it. They, although it is, we talked about it a little bit earlier in this episode, I guess, even too. This is definitely more of a story focused DLC, so it takes you through in a pretty linear manner as opposed to, Pokemon Violet, where it's open world and you can go and do whatever you want. But depending on what you're looking for, if you like collecting Pokemon and filling out the Pokedex, you're gonna have a good time with this. If you like exploring the open world, aspect of Pokemon, you're gonna like what's going on here. If you're looking for brand new Pokemon, yeah, they're in here too. So those things are all good. If you're looking for, that kind of generic Pokemon bullshit story, hey, that's here too. Uh, um, yeah, so I don't know. I think it's an interesting kind of take on the DLC. I think it's better than the two Pokemon Sword and Shield ones that we had seen.
Yeah, but I didn't even play those, and everyone told me just to skip them essentially.
So they had interesting plays. Like, so the first one was kind of a standalone-ish story DLC where it's like, hey, you got to go to the fighting dojo and learn these fighting things, and then they send you around the island to do a bunch of bullshit quests, and it is very much like the rest of the game, very kind of story driven, but it's also just has like a lot more bullshit in it that just really makes it tedious. Also, it encourages you to play through it twice, which is annoying. It's like, hey, you can get this Pokemon in this one way, but you can only do it once and you can't switch it. So if you want to get the other one, you have to play it again. So that was kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. And then interestingly, the second DLC for Sword and Shield, which I did enjoy some aspects of it, but it basically was like, it's like, hey kid, you want some legendaries? And they're like, yeah, sure. And they're like, okay. And then so it just is like, it sends you on a bunch of bullshit quests to get like, I don't know, are they legendary Pokemon? Whatever, you get like the box legendaries. So, because it's got that like cave where you go in and you can go and do. Actually, I really liked it. Where it's because you get to play like Gigantamax battles against like random Pokemon, and then if you get to the end, there's a legendary Pokemon, and if you beat it, you can catch it. So, and it had like all the box legendaries, like everything from, Mewtwo to what are the ones from Sun and Moon? I don't even remember. They had they had the Sun and the Moon, but they also had like the Ultra Beasts were all there too. Is what they call the alien Pokemon. I don't know. I never played Ultra Sun and Moon, so I don't really know what these alien Pokemon are. But they're in there, and you can catch them. So yeah, that's one way to catch them all, and it's just nice. And then they have like, what were the other kind of side quests? That's also where you get the regional variants of the three birds, the Galarian, Zapdos, Articuno, and Moltres, which I love. Like, I think those are like really awesome designs, and just kind of the way they switched them up, really cool. I like that. That was one of the things. What was the other thing that's in there too? There's a quest with like that horse Pokemon, which is also another one where it's like, hey kid, you want these two different types of Pokemon? Yeah, you got to play through it twice. Yeah, dumb. Hopefully they didn't do that in the first DLC for Pokemon Violet, so hopefully they don't do it again. And then there's one more kind of fetch questy thing that it lets you do, but really it's kind of like a cheats way to get a lot of these like kind of old awesome Pokemon, which I did kind of appreciate. But if you remember, and I don't know if you do, when I played through the game last time, so that DLC does not have kind of restrictions on the Pokemon level, so you can get through them. It kind of like, I think it scales to you. So you can go in there and you can use that one kind of Gigantamax battle thing that I was talking about. And you can go in there and be like, you can score a legendary Pokemon with your otherwise highest level Pokemon being your starter Pokemon at like level 5 or some bullshit. And then you're like, okay, well now I can go wreck the rest of this game with my Mewtwo and just kind of tear up the streets with this higher level Pokemon. So it's interesting. It does kind of break the game a little bit. The one for Pokemon Violet does seem like it's more of a story DLC that kind of expands on that universe. So, I mean, is it fun breaking the game? I guess it's DLC, whatever. You get what you want out of it. But Teal Mask doesn't seem to do it. And, so I'm assuming that the second DLC won't stray from that. Although it does seem like it promises maybe battles with some of the old gym leaders again. So we'll see. But that we don't know when it's coming out. Maybe this year, maybe not. Otherwise, we're just gauging it on the Teal Mask, which I said was enjoyable. I don't know. I will sometimes put DLC like standalone things on my list as standalone titles. I don't know if that's going to happen with either of these things this year, Xenoblade or with Pokemon Violet, but it's possible. So, if it was going to happen, though, I'd say Xenoblade 3 probably more likely than Pokemon Violet, unless the second DLC comes out and it's incredible. So, yeah. So that's I don't know. That's those thoughts. Again, I kind of stumbled into other games, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some other games you've played that I remember that you've played.
Okay.
That you haven't mentioned.
Yeah.
We talked about remakes, and you talked about Metroid Prime.
Yeah.
And I talked about Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
I didn't hear Dead Space.
Oh yeah, Dead Space came out this year, didn't it? Yeah.
It sure did.
That's one of the faults of this list that I used because they didn't change the name of the game, so it's just on my list as Dead Space.
Wait, the list that you're looking through or something right now?
Yeah,
games that came out this year.
Well, no, not games that come out this year. I keep my list of all the games I've played.
Okay. I was like, why didn't you write Dead Space in your list?
I did write Dead Space. It just says Dead Space. That's the problem, though. It's also right next to, if you remember, I also played Dead Space 2 right after it.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
My list right now reads Dead Space Extraction, Dead Space Ignition, Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3. So it doesn't really jump out as being a remake. Aside from you reminding me that it's on there, and I forgot.
It reminded you now. What do you think of that one?
Oh, that's excellent. That definitely deserves to be on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that definitely will make my game of the year list. Now that you reminded me.
A little hyphen next to it or brackets and write 2023 next to Dead Space.
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to do. 2023. I did.
There's a remake.
Yeah, I did it as we spoke. So now it is on the list.
There you go.
2023. Yeah, no, that is excellent. I mean, you guys know I love Dead Space.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite series, and this was a game that it came me to do next gen for because I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I want Dead Space. I mean, I love Dead Space enough that if Switch 2 or whatever comes out and they're like, hey, y'all, Dead Space, yeah, I'm rebuying it again. So it's spoiler alert. But yeah, no, I think it's an excellent game. I think they did a great job with the remake.
Mm-hmm.
The game is very reminiscent of the original. Like, there's a lot that I remember there that is exactly the way it should be, and kind of things more or less play out in the same order. But they did a lot of nice things. Like, they tweaked the controls, they tweaked the gameplay, they tweaked some of the quality of life stuff. The boss battles are much more modern and not as obnoxious as they used to be in the past. But a lot of the classic gameplays there, they really didn't mess around too much with what made Dead Space Dead Space. They really kind of took that to heart. Be like,
honestly, that's what people need to do when they make remakes.
Yeah, although I feel like, honestly, really, we don't get too many remakes these days that stray terribly far away.
We actually had one recently that came out last year that strayed so far away that it did so poorly, it shut down the entire company.
Which one?
Saints Row.
Oh. We don't get too many terrible
company. They shut themselves down like last week, I believe.
Yeah, it was pretty recent, within the last month. But then also, I think we talked about it at that time, though. Like, that was a horribly mismanaged project.
They make a game for people that don't play their games. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and it sounded like it started off as a completely different game and then got retooled back into a remake and just kind of failed miserably at everything it set out to do. So that was kind of more of the issue with that one. Yeah. I would say, though, most normal kind of remake, remasters take a very kind of more treasured look at the games and kind of revere what they're looking for there. And I think Dead Space does a great job at that. It keeps the core elements where they should be, and it's smart enough to acknowledge things that need to be changed. And also, I think interestingly too, it does acknowledge kind of things that will happen in the series. Like it definitely does not strike a tone of, hey, if we go back and remake things, we're fucking wiping this timeline out.
Yeah.
Like, which I think is good. Like I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed if they're like, yeah, Dead Space 2 didn't exist anymore. I'm happy enough with where this game ended that if they didn't, I really don't think they need to remake Dead Space 2 or 3. I think that I agree with someone said it. Instead of remaking the next two games, they should just jump right to Dead Space 4 and fucking finish things up. That's what I would like them to do. Kind of pick up where things left. But it'd be interesting to see what they end up doing. There's already rumors that Dead Space 2 remake is in the works. So
since we're on the topic of remakes, I would like to bring up a few remakes that released this year that I played that I actually think are also excellent. All right. So, first and foremost, the remake of Katamari. We love Katamari. It's so good. Excellent game. And then the remake of System Shock. Both those games also got remakes this year. Don't really hear about them that much. I love Katamari. We love Katamari is the name of the game. But I'm just saying, I love Katamari. It's one of my favorite series of all time. It's like the one surefire way to make me happy when I'm not. And yeah, we got a remake of We Love Katamari this year, and it's an excellent one that added new content as well, including like missions and levels from the point of view of the king, where you play as the king as a kid, and it's actually really interesting. So yeah, good remake. And then so is System Shock, although I haven't really touched on that one that much, so I probably won't talk about it. But since we were, I won't talk about it at the end of the year for Game of the Year. But I'm saying, since we had brought up remakes, those are also two really good remakes that came out this year.
Yeah, actually, one more that I got too.
Advance Wars 1 and 2. Yeah, I was going to bring that one up for one that you played that you may not have remembered, that you might also need to put a bracket in 2023 with.
No, that one definitely is labeled correctly, so that one not an issue. And I didn't play all the other Advance Wars around it, so yeah, that one's not as much an issue. But I do think it's very well done remake. Very, obviously they treasured what they were working on quite a bit. Like I don't know, I think this is a pretty faithful remake in terms of content and making sure that it is as faithful as it can be to the original, while also doing things that bring it a little bit closer quality of life wise. I mean, they made it so you could rewind a turn if you needed to. I mean, that's kind of nice, but they didn't go the full Fire Emblem route. They're like, hey, rewind as many turns as you want.
Yeah.
And honestly, even too, like even the rewind turn feature is not, it's only the turn that you're currently on. Like it doesn't take you before like an enemy phase. So, I guess example is one time I accidentally went into a turn and just went right to the end turn thing and just kind of ended my turn. And there's no rewinding back from that. That just fucked up my whole like match so much. It's like, nope, just have to start all the way back over. You can't like rewind past like a mistake like that. So I mean, there's still some penalty there, but honestly, I think the game looks great. I like the art style. I know some people don't like the transition from pixels to polygons, but that is a tale as old as time. I think that with what they were working with, I think it looks excellent, and I think it's very reminiscent of what they had originally. And I just think it's just got a lot of style. It's got a lot of panache. I like the voice acting, little voice acting they added to it, like kind of the anime cutscenes they got from time to time. I think it's great. I love it. And they also added, I think, online multiplayer as well, like a bunch of maps to download and play. So, not that I played online with it, but the option is there if you would like to. So, yeah, I would recommend it. That if you like Advance Wars, yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Or if you like turn-based strategy. I guess a lot of people don't even. It's been like how many years since the last Advance Wars games? Probably don't even know. But if you like turn-based strategy games, like Fire Emblem, play Advance Wars. That's your takeaway.
So do you have any more games on your list that you haven't really talked about?
I think all the things left are things that I would just bitch about.
Let's hear some bitching. We've been talking about too many good things. Let's hear some bitching.
Actually, no. I only have one game left to bitch about. Fire Emblem Engage. Which I don't know.
It was awful.
Yeah. Actually, no. I got two games that I played this year that I could still
Bitch
talk
about?
about. One is definitely Fire Emblem Engage. Definitely is a bitch about.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting too because we were talking about DLC, and I didn't actually talk about the DLC for this, but I did really enjoy the Fire Emblem Engage DLC. I thought it was much better than the real game. I thought the story was much more cohesive. I thought that the characters were much better. I thought the motives were much better. I thought the gameplay was much better.
Just
I have lots
much
of
better.
great things to say about the Fire Emblem Engage DLC.
What if the Fire Emblem Engage DLC was just its own game?
I mean, that would be a much better game. Yeah.
Would that make the top of your list? I guess that's what I was trying to ask.
Would it make the top of my list? Like you're saying, like
top 10. Top 10.
I mean, at this point, like I don't know
how good the DLC was. That's what I'm trying to gauge.
So I mean, it's kind of unfair. It's kind of unfair to guess right now. Could it make my top 10? Sure,
okay.
I would say. I think that's reasonable, and I don't know. It's always tricky. So because these lists, I don't know how you are. Maybe you're more on top of things than I am, but a lot of times these lists really don't come together for me until the end of the year.
No, it's essentially the same for me, but I have like a list of games written down that I'd like to talk about that I've either played enough of or I've actually finished, and that's essentially where we're at right now.
Yeah.
But then I'm also throwing in some that I have not, like, I'm not anywhere near that, but just my impressions from what I've been able to play. Maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't, and that's kind of what I'm using this as, as a way of talking about those kind of games, which is what I'm going to go into next. I've got a small string of those, to be completely honest.
So I guess what I'm saying though is like, if I was going to kind of string together my list right now, I think I only have 9 titles for like my top 10. Like there's still gaps there. So I guess what I'm saying is Fire Emblem Engage probably, because I didn't count that, would just end up on that list by default. Because it'd be like, this is the 10th game that I played this year, so here it is. I don't really love it here. Granted, I'm not, like I said, I'm not talking about stuff that is coming out, and so I expect that to quickly fall off this list. But at least kind of mentally, that's where I am. So yeah, theoretically, the DLC could make the list on its own, especially if I started like kind of weighing pros and cons for things like that. I would never weigh the DLC separately, although it might be kind of one of those things where it'd be like, hey, this game made this list because I enjoyed the DLC so much more than the actual game, which is still not yet finished.
I was mostly going into like a hypothetical, like if the game that released was just the DLC instead, like if Fire Emblem Engage main story did not exist, and if you bought Fire Emblem Engage right now and you got the DLC instead, that story, would it be like in your list? Would that be such a better game that it would actually make your list?
Could be. I mean, I think the DLC only had 6 or 7 chapters in it, so it was a bit short on that end of things. But
I see.
I would say overall enjoyability wise, yeah, it's definitely a drastic difference.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I said, it's possible that depending on, I really don't foresee the game making my list at the end of the year. It's possible. Depending on how
to make your list. Please don't let it make your list. I don't want it to make your list. Please don't let it make your list.
If I do, it will probably be exactly like what I said though. I'll be like, hey, I enjoyed this DLC quite a bit. I was not really a big fan of the other game, like the core game. But we always talk about though, the gameplay itself was good. Just the story just kind of made you not want to play it. So DLC was excellent, and it fixed a lot of this. I thought the story was much more entertaining and compelling in that regard. So is it possible that it could? Yeah, I won't rule anything out. It is kind of, I've said it before, finishing Fire Emblem Engage by the end of the year is still one of my goals, even though I've not really done anything to move that needle in the last few months. So who knows? Maybe when I actually finish it, my opinions on it will change and nudge it up into like maybe a solid 10. But I'm not really expecting too much. And there's enough stuff coming out the rest of this year that I'm really not expecting, like I said, it to be in that realm. But we'll see. Yeah, so that's that. The other game that I forgot about on here too, and it's also another remake or re-release, and it's I don't know. It could theoretically, I suppose, make my list just because it's a game that released this year that I played. and finished. Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Not a good game, or not a bad game, not a great game, very solid, good game. But I would say, it's kind of, remember what I said about it before. It's a Kirby game, and a lot of the kind of classic Kirby games, they're just very slow. Like, it's Kirby just kind of moves like he has no purpose in life, and he's just kind of drifting carelessly through the winds in hopes that maybe one day he'll land where he'll be in a position to beat the final boss or whatever. This is like, or maybe next to a delicious snack, whatever floats his boat, and that's just kind of like how it is. And it's just like, it's Kirby. He plays just like the classic Kirby games. You get power ups, you use them to beat enemies and bosses, and it's the same bosses that you've been fighting for the last 20 years. And this one is 4 players, so if you want to play it that way, you can. And he does have super power ups that are kind of stage gimmicks that can unlock challenge areas for you. But there's not a lot new or compelling here, especially compared to the original Wii release.
Okay.
I would say. It does have some fun mini games, which I think are pretty cool. So if you're playing multiplayer or, kind of do like time attack stuff, you might have a good kick out of it. I enjoyed the multiplayer games that were in there. And then kind of last piece of it is they did add that new, I forget what it's called, but it's like the epilogue quest where you play as Magolor and you kind of return your powers, which I actually think is kind of better than the core game on its own.
Yeah, there it goes again.
But that's kind of like a two-pronged thing. I mean, obviously, this game came out 10, 15 years ago originally, and then you got them coming back and be like, hey, let's make some new content for this game 15 years later, and how can we make it exciting based on what we already have? You have kind of the hindsight that you can make it however you want. So they can do cool stuff with that. And if you remember too, kind of another example of this, because Nintendo likes to do this a lot lately. I thought that what was it called? The side story for 3D World. I fucking loved that. Bowser's whatever. I don't remember right now, and I don't care to Google it. But where was that kind of that weird side story where it's kind of like pseudo 3D Mario, but kind of the gameplay of 3D World? Oh, that was delicious. And 3D World's probably one of my favorite Mario games. So to kind of have like a kind of a DLC built off of that, that's just builds on it with kind of basically taking Mario in a new direction. Awesome. I loved it. So yeah, I mean, they do some really creative stuff when they've been doing these re-releases, and I think that's excellent. I think Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe kind of offers in that regard. But I think my issue with it is the core gameplay. It's Kirby, and not that Kirby gameplay is bad. I just think that classic 2D Kirby has been pretty uninspired for a while, which is kind of why we loved the 3D Kirby that came out last year, which Forgotten World, something like that. Whatever that.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Either way, it was a great game.
Yeah, it was a great game, and it really kind of built on the Kirby formula, and it made it new and exciting while keeping a lot of what the series was intact. Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe really was just kind of like not any different than the other Kirbys that you played. So, and it's always been the problem with Kirby for a long time, like multiple generations, where it was always the classic Kirby games played very similarly. You knew exactly what you're getting, and it wasn't a surprise there. They're just very safe games. The kind of the oddballs that came in between always were like the best Kirby games. Kirby Mass Attack, Kirby Canvaskers, like the stuff that kind of strayed away from the original formula while still kind of retaining the Kirby stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Return to Dreamland Deluxe, very safe Kirby game. But not really anything that kind of is going to wildly shake your opinions on it too much. Also, this is also a thing that I consider a fault of this game. It does not let you play the Magolor thing until after you've beaten the full game. So if you want to try that new content, you have to
finish the main game. Yeah, okay,
which was the drag.
Kind of shit. Yeah.
That's why it took me so long to do it, because I would just play like a couple levels and just be like, I've had enough Kirby for a month, and then just kind of stop for a while. But I didn't eventually finish it. I did play I finished the Magolor stuff in one day, so I enjoyed it so much.
Shit.
But the rest of the game took me months. So yeah. Okay, I think that's all the rest of the things from 20.
Okay, I've got a few other things that I'm going to run through. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm going to run through a few things that could potentially end up on this, but have not come out yet. Okay. So that's going to be like my last part. All right.
Yeah.
So essentially, a few things that I haven't played enough, but I would like, or I haven't played at all, but I do think will probably show up on my list when I actually do play them.
Mm-hmm.
Octopath Traveler 2. It's, from what I've played of it so far, it's just better in every way from Octopath Traveler 1, and it feels like a much better and well-rounded game with a better story, better characters. The world looks better and is more interesting. It's just a really, really solid JRPG that is a lot of fun to play. So, there you go. That one. Mortal Kombat 1 may run like shit on PC. I have enjoyed the fuck out of playing this game, even with it being absolutely broken. I want to finish the story, and I want to play some more of the other mode. Potentially get it on PS5 and play it that way, where it actually works correctly. But yeah, really fun game to play. This is another one that I don't know where I sit on it yet, but Baldur's Gate 3. Everyone is chomping at the bits for this game. I have it installed, but I haven't played it yet because I know it's going to be a big undertaking, like a big. It's a big game I'm gonna have to tackle, like essentially, and yeah, I'm excited to, but I need time, and then I need to finish a few other things first.
Fair.
And I think with that, it's going to take me into the games that potentially could show up on my list if they are good. Spider-Man 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2. If it's good, could end up here.
Yeah.
Alan Wake 2. If it's good, could end up here. I love the original Alan Wake. I'm really excited for this one. It's probably the last game I'm excited to see come out this year. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, I don't think anything else really stands out to me this year. But there is one thing that I have played, and I've actually played a lot. And that is, and I should have put this because I'm pretty sure this is actually going to be on my list, but this is a very specifically me game. Like, I don't really think anyone else is going to have this on their top list whatsoever. Okay. And that's Final Fantasy Theatrhythm Final Bar Line. It is such a good rhythm game. It is so much fun. They have so much good Final Fantasy music in it. I love Final Fantasy music. I love Square Enix music, and this game is like exactly what I wanted. And it's really fun to play, and I've been playing it throughout the year as new music gets released. And I definitely think it's like one of the standout titles for the year that's like very specifically a me game and no one else. But yeah, Theatrhythm, Final Bar Line. Great game. Really love it.
That just reminded me. I had meant to tell you this, and I did not know. And it is also, I guess, topical because it is a game that is coming out this year.
Mm-hmm.
But the Jackbox Party Pack 10, just has a music rhythm game in it.
Ooh. You know I like my music rhythm games.
Yeah.
I've been so like I at times scroll YouTube Shorts when I'm really bored because it's easier. It's pretty easy to do that. Like I'll tab out while I'm waiting for a game to load or whatever. You know, like multiplayer game to get all the players in there and everything. I just scroll through some random YouTube Shorts on my desktop, and I keep seeing this one guy that has this huge DDR mat that's made of metal, and like he's playing DDR songs that never existed in DDR that people have made. And I know it's in Stepmania because I grew up with that, and I know that's like the way people play custom things, but I'm like, I want to know where this man got his DDR mat because I've never seen one like this, and I really want it. Because like he does all the crazy shit. Like he literally can like slap the up and down arrows with his hands and does so in the videos, and it's like, damn, that looks awesome.
I mean, people do love their DDR.
I love DDR. I got so mad when my bowling alley removed it.
I've not seen a DDR machine in a long.
Saw one before the pandemic, and then after the pandemic, I went back to that same bowling alley, and it was gone.
Yeah, they're probably like, nope, this can't be here during the pandemic. Hasta lasagna. They probably just gave it away too. They just
Yeah, I would have taken it. No, so I used to actually repair DDR machines because I had a friend that taught me how to do it. So, I would go to arcades and I would play for free because I would repair their DDRs.
Hey, that's cool, Greg.
When I was a kid, I did that because it's like I didn't really understand the value of money because whatever I had whatever I needed as a kid essentially, and I would go to arcade and like first I would buy some tokens and I'd play the machine and then like be like, "Yo, I'll fix your machines," because my friend had taught me how to repair them. And I'd repair them and they'd just be like, "All right, you can just play free play." I was like, "Hell yeah, dude!"
Yeah.
I love the DDR. I still do. I just wish it was something I could like play in my house.
I do have 3 more games I would talk about upcoming.
Yeah, sure. Let's hear them.
And I think they're all kind of predictable for me, but just things that I am excited to play before the end of the year. That I know are coming out. WarioWare Move It.
I actually thought about that one for you. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, that one I'm excited for. It's WarioWare, so who knows? Sometimes I feel like they're kind of not really hit and miss, but you just really don't know how much time you're going to sink into them. Because I really wasn't. I mean, I enjoyed the last one for the Switch, but it was not. I played it for a couple of days and I was just like, okay, I'm good. But I think I think that this game having it do like the motion controls again, I think will make it a lot of fun and kind of make it a stupid fun party game. So I'm kind of excited to see how that ends up panning out. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, obviously.
I also had that one, but I don't have that on my list because it just hasn't hooked me yet. Like I've seen the trailers and it's just like, yeah, it kind of reminds me of Donkey Kong, which is good. I'll definitely play it eventually, but
yeah,
whatever.
It just looks like a drug trip, and I'm just gonna want to see what they end up doing with it. So we'll see. And then obviously, big one, Super Mario RPG remake. So
yeah, that one I should have had that on my list. I forgot that came out this year. Oh my god.
Yep, it's one of my favorite games of all time, and to have it remade, that is a huge win in my book. This is another one where we were talking about, doing remakes and remasters, right? From what we've seen so far, it looks like they are doing it right. So don't fuck it up.
Yep, I agree.
But, it seems like it is a very safe remake. It seems like they're doing the right things to make sure that, classic players are happy. I always think it's a good sign when they're like, hey, we remastered all the music, but we're also going to include the original too, just in case you want to. I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks.
I do have one other thing that I want to play before the end of the year. I know it is not a good game. Like, I already know it's not. But the sheer ridiculousness of the game and everything that I've seen makes me really want to play it.
Yeah.
And that's Wanted Dead.
I don't even know it.
So, it is a game that basically throws logic out the window. Like, there's no point to it. Like, you made, like... We were talking about, like, rhythm games and everything. And they have, like... It's a third-person action game, right? Made by... I don't know who made it, but it doesn't matter. It's a third-person action game, and I've seen so many videos pop up in my YouTube feed about this game. It got popular from being called, like, a mess, basically. It's not necessarily a good game, but it's also not a bad game. But it's also a game that doesn't know what the fuck it's doing, and that's what makes it so interesting. So it's like super interesting because of that. So like one example is, and I actually watched a video, when you play the game at the beginning, you get a karaoke minigame, and the karaoke minigame is 99 red balloons that plays. Right? And so you get to do that karaoke minigame, and then you finish the karaoke minigame, and you can go back upstairs, and there's no karaoke machine, but you can do the karaoke minigame again. But that's when you realize it's not a karaoke minigame. It's just a 99 red balloons minigame. There are no more songs. That's the only one you get. Period. And lots of weird design decisions about things like that. Like, they'll have moments where, like, characters just do memes for some weird fucking reason for no reason whatsoever. And it's not done in a way where it's like, haha, we are being silly. It just is integrated into the game itself. But then the game itself is like a brutal hack and slash, bloody third-person shooter affair, similar to something like Devil's Third. But the game is just, its tone is everywhere to the point where it's like the equivalent of a B movie as a video game. It's like $40. It released this year in February, actually on Valentine's Day. And I've just seen so many people talking about it even before ads started getting put out, because there were people that did like retrospectives of this game because it's just fucking weird. It's really, really weird and doesn't make any sense. And it's like super interesting because of how weird it is. But the funny thing is, people that did those retrospectives then caused the game to get so much traction and people got so interested in it that then the game started making sales. So then the game started doing paid for ads with other people, and then other people started doing paid for ads for the game, still making fun of it. And the people that made the game were just like, "That's fine. We don't care." So like, it's so weird. It's kind of like an enigma. It's like not good, but not bad, but something you just can't take your eyes off of. It's like a car crash in motion. It's like a car crash in motion, is the way I've seen it described. And yeah, it looks really interesting and really fucking stupid. Similar to something like you would see that like has a weird title on like the Xbox 360, and then you play it and you're like, the fuck was this? Mm-hmm. Like, it's not bad, but it's like, what the fuck did I just play? Like, do you remember a game called Never Dead? It was on PS3 and 360. It was a third-person action-adventure game, but every time you got attacked, you would lose parts of your body until you were just a head that was rolling around and had to collect the other parts of your body to put yourself back together because you were technically a zombie.
Uh-huh.
It's got weird shit like that in this kind of game. And it's just fucking weird. And yeah, I want to play this. It's like one of my most wanted to play games that I still have left. But whatever, it's fine. And then there's Forza coming out as well, but Forza's Forza. It might show up, it might not, who knows.
Yeah, maybe it will. Maybe we'll know.
Yeah, just weird. Just weird stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah. Oh, Mineko's Night Market just came out. That's the one about the island of cats. It's been like every Nintendo Switch indie showcase. It's been like on all of them.
The one that I thought looked kind of Okami-ish, right?
Yeah. That just came out just now, actually.
All right, random.
Yeah, I only know because I got an update on Game Pass that says I can install it now. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't even know that was out. Okay, all right, I'll take it.
Oh. All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I have nothing. I don't want to talk about anything else. I'm done.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up then.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to us tonight. Hope you enjoyed our pre-game of the year kind of thing. If you guys have any need to, I guess, listen to our other episodes after this great one, we're on Facebook. No, what am I talking? I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. I'm all nonsense now. What are our episodes? Wow, you say it a million times, and I'm like brain farting. iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast, and our website, game-crunch.com. There they are. That's where they are. You can go find them there. And then if you want to reach out to us, Facebook, or you can send us an email, gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon?
Hello.
Any final thoughts for the future?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. That said, my name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online. I'm Clash Penguin online or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Game on.
Yeah. You ready to move on to the next one?
Sure. So, I mean, have you got all your stuff situated for this one? Because this one's like partially almost a game of the year, right? That's what this is going to be?
Yeah, it's just going to be kind of be like a game of the year kind of recap kind of thing, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have anything I need to look up. I mean, I have my list of games that I play.
Okay, cool. I think we're good then.
Yeah, let's do it.